of the hour, what are you doing tonight? Are you ready for the big matchup? You know, we've seen Ali versus Frazier and Tyson versus Douglas, and now Fetterman versus Oz. That's the kind of company one strategist is comparing to tonight's huge Senate debate, the one that could decide whether President Biden can get anything done over the next 2 years. We're live in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin with what's at stake with 2 weeks to go until the midterms. Speaking of the president, he's reminding everybody get their COVID booster shots. Given the triple-demic threat out there, how the White House is trying to turn its public health messaging around. Plus new numbers, consumer confidence numbers now at its lowest level in months, with alarms going off on the housing market, why rising prices are cooling down. And a massive recall on dry shampoo, what you need to know about a cancer-causing chemical in these products. Listen up for yourself and for others. And if you think you've got a nightmare vacation story, just wait until you hear about this group in Arizona. Did you hear about this? Trapped below ground for hours under the Grand Canyon. The new details about their rescue later in the show. Good day. I'm Tom Costello. I'm in for Hallie. And with 2 weeks to go until Election Day, it's a big debate day in Michigan, in New York, in Colorado. But the one that we're really keeping our eyes on is the biggest showdown of the midterm elections. In just a couple of hours, John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz will go head-to-head in their only televised debate. Now, this race could really decide control of the Senate, and it's the clearest opportunity for Democrats to expand their majority. It's a race, though, that's tightening up. Just 1 month ago, Fetterman led Oz by 6 points on average. Now, just over 1%, well within the margin of error. The debate will also put Fetterman's stroke recovery in the spotlight. You know, he's still recovering and experiencing auditory processing challenges, which are typical, we're told. He'll be using live captioning to read questions as they're asked. And Fetterman's campaign is trying to frame expectations for tonight, saying that Oz has a huge built-in advantage, given his 2 decades on television, and that he'll win the race even if he doesn't win the debate. Hear that difference? We're also watching Wisconsin, where early voting starts today. Democrats hope to pick up a seat from this guy, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. There he is right there. He is casting his ballot today in Milwaukee. Plus, those hopes, unfortunately, could be slipping away for him. Incumbent Senator Ron Johnson widening his lead now. All that against the context of new numbers from our team at NBC News showing most Americans don't trust any elected officials right now. You see the range here, 44% for governors, down to 32% for state legislatures. As our political unit puts it, it's a sign that no one is safe in this current political environment. So we're going to get to NBC's Shaq Brewster in Wisconsin in just a moment there. He's getting ready, doing his exercises. But we're starting now with Dasha Burns, who's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. All right, Dasha, one Democratic strategist told NBC News that tonight's debate is like seeing 2 undefeated heavyweights step into the ring for a title bout. That's basically what we're expecting, right? Talk to us about what you're expecting.
Tom, look, this might be the most consequential and most anticipated moment of the midterms. Look, we've been talking to voters all across Pennsylvania for months now. They've seen these candidates battling it out on the airwaves, on social media, and they've been very eager to see them actually face-to-face talking about the issues that they care about. The Fetterman campaign, just before the debate, put out a memo about what to expect on their end of things, sort of lowering expectations for their candidate, saying, look, we'll admit this isn't John's format, saying that Oz is coming into this with an advantage. And Oz, the TV celebrity doctor, did push for more than one debate. But they said, closing in that memo, saying that John will win this race, even if he doesn't win the debate. A pretty extraordinary memo from that team. But look, voters are excited to see what these candidates have to say. And I'll tell you, we've been focused on some specific subsets of voters here in Pennsylvania that both candidates have really been trying to target with their messaging. One of those voter demographics, suburban women. We talked to women in 2 different counties, Luzerne County, a red county in northeastern Pennsylvania, and Montgomery County, one of the collar counties around Philadelphia, a blue county. It was interesting to see the differences and similarities in opinion from these women. Take a listen to what we heard.
Inflation, like, it really affects how you parent, what you can do with your kids. their expendable income is just shrinking every day.
Definitely the economy, gas prices, food prices. I'm single. I'm a teacher, but I have 5 other jobs.
5 other jobs?
Yeah, 5 other little side jobs that I do. So I work all the time.
Thomas, interesting, you know, these are 2 very different places, but we heard very similar concerns from women in both counties. The economy and inflation, crime and public safety top of mind. Abortion important to some women, but not the biggest issue as they're thinking about their votes. And several of the women we talked to did say that their vote is still up for grabs, that they are still persuadable, and said that tonight's debate could help them make up their mind. Tom?
Nobody's worked that beat, your beat, harder than you during this election. Dasha, thank you very much. We will now go to Shaq Brewster. Are you warmed up there, buddy? I saw you doing the exercises. Are you ready? All right.
Some exercises, and I had to take off that hat.
Okay. You're in Waukesha, and listen, that's the site of the Christmas parade attack, and that's where Ron Johnson held a rally today. You asked him about crime and law enforcement, particularly given his recent comments about the leadership of the FBI, right?
Exactly, Tom. And part of my question was about the idea that this is one of the issues that Republicans and especially Senator Ron Johnson have used against Democrats in the state of Wisconsin. You mentioned some of the polling there. Many people credit the advertisements from Republican groups against Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes as having a factor in that. But we've also heard Senator Johnson criticize members of law enforcement at a federal level. So that's part of the conversation I had with him. I want you to listen to a little bit of what we heard.
You've been critical of law enforcement in terms of the FBI, saying that they are corrupt, saying that they set you up. How is that different from the criticism we've heard before?
I've said certain actors within the FBI, some of the higher-ups, have been partisan and they have been corrupt, and that's true. But I've also said the vast majority of people in federal law enforcement are people of high integrity, and I support their efforts, and I support law enforcement. By the way, I'm supported by law enforcement.
So that's an issue we've seen both of the 2 candidates go back and forth on. But I'll tell you, the 2 candidates were singing from the same tune today on this first day of in-person absentee voting. They both encouraged early voting, although Johnson did explain or cast some doubt on the 2020 elections, as he's done in the past. He said that he's encouraging early voting in this election because he trusts the process here in Wisconsin more this time.
More this time, he says. Okay. Shaq, we showed that poll earlier, that dead heat from Mandela Barnes starting to slip away. You asked him today where he thinks this race stands with the 2 of them and 2 weeks to go. What did he say?
Yeah, and if we get a sense of how intensely he's focused on this race and how much he wants his own supporters to come out and vote early, I can tell you that Mandela Barnes arrived at that early voting location before 9 a.m. That was when polls opened. He was there about 5 minutes before, waiting for doors to open to cast his ballot. I want you to listen to a little bit of what he told me when I asked him what's the state of this race right now.
Any vote we take for granted is a vote we'll lose. We're not looking to lose any of them. We're showing up. We're talking to people about the things that matter, holding Ron Johnson accountable for turning his back on the people of Wisconsin for 12 long years. And the buck stops here.
People know that in Wisconsin, every vote matters. This is going to be a turnout game. And just as there's some skepticism of the polling now when people look at it, Mandela Barnes says he doesn't trust the polls. They go up and down. I'll tell you, before 2016, when Senator Johnson was running for his 2nd term in office, he was behind in nearly every single poll before Election Day, all but one in terms of legitimate polls that were out there. And despite that, he won by about 3.5 percentage points. So that is why you have both candidates saying they know it's going to come down to the wire and they're expecting a razor-tight race.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who really trusts the polls anymore. But listen, both sides are also really breaking out the big guns, right, in this election. You've got Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and Senator Elizabeth Warren. They're both going to Wisconsin tomorrow. Former President Barack Obama, he'll be there Saturday. Why does each side feel it needs to break out the big guns here? Is it because it's just so tight and nobody trusts the polls?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And just this morning, we learned that Rick Scott will also be coming to the state of Wisconsin. I know Ted Cruz also announced a visit, Bernie Sanders next week. It's because they understand it's about turnout. Republicans want to juice their turnout in areas like Waukesha, where I am right now. Democrats need to do the same in areas like Milwaukee and Madison. It's going to be tight, and it's going to be about who turns up to the election day.
I got a feeling you're going to be working this weekend, Shaq. Thanks very much. Shaq Brewster, who's on the ground, as always, on the job in Wisconsin. President Biden today received his updated COVID booster shot on national TV in a push to get more Americans vaccinated again, as the country now faces this triple-demic. Cases of COVID, the flu, and RSV in kids all rising at the same time, and it's not even winter yet. The White House push comes as fewer than 10% of eligible Americans have received their second COVID booster shot so far this fall. While flu activity is high in 5 states now, plus D.C., you'll see them all in red right there. The CDC says 1/3 of current hospitalizations for the flu are in children, and 75%, listen to this, 75% of the country's pediatric beds are full, according to HHS. Joining me now, NBC's Kelly O'Donnell at the White House. Kelly, the president said that these COVID shots could be necessary for every year, I guess, going forward, just like the flu shot, right? But Americans have not been jumping at the chance to get their second booster this year. So how does the White House try to turn that around and convince them?
Well, in some ways, the president did it with a bit of show and tell by getting his own shot today and showing people that it's quick, it's painless, and it is free. And definitely the administration and the president acknowledges there's some weariness. It's been a long road for everyone with COVID, and at the same time, he's trying to put it into sort of a new context, that just like people have become accustomed to getting the flu shot, that an annual COVID shot is likely going to be needed for most Americans who are generally healthy to protect them from these variants. And we know that viruses do continue to change, and so variants become a part of the picture. And what is different now is this updated shot that is available is dealing with both the original strain of COVID and the variants that we have seen. And one of the big differences we're also experiencing is in the first couple of years, there was a lot of masking, a lot of staying at home. We're in a different place now. People are going to be indoors more. People are going back to their offices. Kids are in school. All of that, where we're seeing more of a potential for the exposure for any of the winter time and autumn viruses and so forth. So the president is saying, get that. He is saying 1 out of 5 seniors have gotten their updated booster. Certainly the administration would like to see the number there higher, because seniors are more likely to have a poor outcome if they do get COVID, Tom.
So that all brings me to my trip today. I was over at Inova Hospital in Northern Virginia in the pediatric ER today. And as you know, we've seen big spikes already in the cases of the flu and RSV in kids. So I spoke right there with Dr. Rick Place. He's the emergency medical director at Inova. And he talked about the fact that he says they have already broken there at that hospital their yearly record for treating patients just so far, and it's only mid-October. Listen to what he told me.
I would say we're beyond busy. And to use the word crisis, I think absolutely is appropriate right now.
This is a crisis, your situation.
It's a crisis. I've been doing this for 30 years. This is a crisis that I have never seen in my career before.
And he says he never uses that kind of language. So talk to us about the urgency here in getting this message out, especially now with the midterms and the holidays. One of the most poignant and I thought to the point moments the president made today was when he said, listen, the previous versions of the vaccine against COVID aren't going to protect you. You got to get the new booster. That's it. End of message on that.
And that's what the president is saying. You've got to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. He said put a lot of the conversations that we've had across the family dinner table behind you. Look at it as what you need now and going forward. And because people want to be with their families over the holidays, important to get that shot now in this window to get the protection before Thanksgiving and the winter holidays. So they're trying to get the message out, and they're hoping that being reminded that it's free and available will encourage people to do so.
And we're going to be spending more time with each other indoors, around tables. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly O'Donnell at the White House. All right, President Biden's also saying today that the U.S. is in, quote, constant contact with Russia to get WNBA star Brittney Griner out after a Russian court upheld her 9-year prison sentence this morning. Listen to that.
Constant contact with the Russian authorities to get Brittney and others out. And so far, we've not been meeting with much positive response, but we're not stopping.
The president was just getting his shot at that moment. Griner's lawyer said that she had some hope that today she might be going into this hearing and get some good news, but that vanished fast. She appeared in court on a video conference, calling the whole experience traumatic.
This has been a very traumatic experience, waiting for this day, waiting for the first court, and getting 9 years for a crime that I was barely over the significant amount.
Griner was arrested in February after Russian authorities say that they found vape canisters with cannabis oil in her luggage. Her lawyer said that she only used cannabis medically and that she accidentally packed it because she was in a rush. NBC's Matt Bodner is joining us now. Matt, let's start with what we just heard from President Biden, that they are in constant contact with Russian authorities. Do we know any more about whether Griner's any closer to coming back home through negotiations in the middle of a war, and arguably a Cold War right now with the U.S. and Russia?
Thank you, Tom. Well, unfortunately, this is one of those things that we don't get a very good view on out here on the outside. There's obviously a lot of tension right now between the U.S. and Russia, as you mentioned, and this kind of gets caught in the middle of that. Now, we've seen that Griner is not the only American that has been and still is in Russian custody, and we've been hearing these kinds of things about American citizens currently in Russian prison. I'm thinking now about Paul Whelan, who was arrested back in 2017. The entire time he's been in Russian prison, we've been hearing things from U.S. officials alluding to some kind of behind-the-scenes negotiations for a prisoner swap. But again, 5 years on, Whelan is still there, so it doesn't necessarily paint an overly optimistic picture for Griner. That said, one of those detainees, Trevor Reed, quite suddenly was traded back in April. So you never know which way these things are going to go. We don't really get to see that out in the public, but anything's certainly possible.
You know, she is so tall and she looks so uncomfortable stooped down in those cells. Do we have any better idea of what her conditions are like that she's being held in? And second of all, who really makes the ultimate call in Russia? Is it really a court or is it Vladimir Putin?
Sure. Well, the condition she's in right now, so she's in a Moscow detention center. So she is awaiting kind of the conclusion of the legal process that she's in. That might continue. But on the other end of this is transfer to a Russian penal colony. Now, the conditions she's in right now are not great, but I would say that prison in most countries is not necessarily a great experience. But we're kind of... There's a lot of questions about where she'll be sent, and there's a lot of differing outcomes depending on the type of penal colony she'll be sent to in Russia. If she is sent to one, for example, who's in charge of it? Is it a strict regime? How is it won? And there is, of course, a hugely political element to these decisions, and we're just going to have to see how that plays out.
Okay, but my point was, is it really the court making the decision, or is it the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin? What's your gut tell you?
Gut tells me that this is, at this point, when we're talking about Biden, U.S.-Russia relations, it's, of course, a Kremlin decision at the end of the day.
Matt, thank you. Matt Bodner for us. To the UK now, where today Rishi Sunak officially became the country's new prime minister, and he's already hit the ground running with a cabinet reshuffle, giving the public a glimpse of how he plans to deal with the economy in the UK. Almost a dozen people from Liz Truss's cabinet are out, but some stayed, like her finance minister, Jeremy Hunt, who turned on her. He's credited with bringing back some confidence to the markets after her tax cuts. And speaking at 10 Downing Street for the very first time, Sunak says stability in the UK is now his #1 priority.
I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability.
It comes as world leaders were quick to congratulate the new prime minister, with President Biden saying he looks forward to cooperating on issues critical to global security, including continuing strong support for Ukraine. NBC's Keir Simmons is still outside number 10 Downing Street. Hi, Keir. Listen, a lot happened today based on what we heard in his speech and what we're seeing from this new cabinet. What are your big takeaways on the kind of prime minister that Sunak wants to be?
Domestic challenges, foreign challenges. I mean, read between the lines from that President Biden statement, and what that really means is I really, really hope, new Prime Minister of Britain, that you continue to support our support of Ukraine and President Zelensky, because this new Prime Minister is going to be under huge pressure, enormous pressure domestically. There are going to be tax rate rises, there are going to be spending cuts, there's the cost of living crisis here, just the same as there is there. He's coming in with a divided party. I mean, it just goes on and on just how difficult it is. I suppose, I mean, coming in and saying that he wants to lead a stable government is good, given how unstable the British government has been. I mean, there are lots of good things to say about him, aside from the question of just how difficult his task is, Tom. I mean, I guess, I mean, I love Star Wars. Do you love Star Wars? I feel like you're a Star Wars man.
I was more of a Star Trek guy, but anyway, go ahead with your analogy.
You've got to be a Star Wars man. Oh, okay. Well, okay, because I was going to say, well, I'm disappointed because I was going to say you and I both share that with the new Prime Minister, who's a big Star Wars geek, apparently, 42 years old, somebody who's going to hope to be bringing a fresh, new face to the leadership of Britain. Of course, his party, though, has been in charge for a long time.
Listen, you made mention of Ukraine, and President Zelensky was also one of the first world leaders to congratulate Sunak. He tweeted that he's ready to continue strengthening the Ukraine-UK strategic partnership. The war started when Boris Johnson was still in charge. Is Sunak just as committed to backing Ukraine, do you think?
Well, this is exactly, it's a great question. I mean, all of those world leaders are leaning in to say, congratulations, and I hope that you do what we want you to do. And that's very much true for Ukraine. And listen, there is no sign, of course, that the UK, the British public, are in any way turning away from the support for Ukraine. But there are enormous pressures. I mean, in the end, the British people are going to be looking at potential cuts to funding for health. They may have to pay more tax. There is that question of, at some point, whether or not they turn around and say, well, can we really afford this? And that, by the way, Tom, is the bigger picture across Europe. I mean, I've said it again and again. This is going to be a long, hard winter in Europe. All of this, and I just have to mention this, I know you have other questions, but, you know, all of this shouldn't get in the way of the fact, by the way, though, that this is the first person of colour to walk through that famous door as Prime Minister. The president of his home Hindu temple describing this as an Obama moment for Britain. I mean, it is historic here for a country with its colonial past.
And he's also the richest, right? So there's a lot to watch there, a lot to keep us interested.
Yeah.
Keir, thank you. Keir Simmons, right. Outside number 10. All right, buddy, thank you. Former top advisor to former President Trump, Hope Hicks, interviewing with the January 6th committee today. A source familiar with the matter telling NBC News, Hicks left her job as counselor to the president 6 days after January 6th. The committee did not comment or give any additional details, and Hicks did not immediately respond to our request for comment. Hicks' attorney, a rather interview, comes just days after the January 6th committee subpoenaed the former president himself. Joining me now, NBC's Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill. Ryan, I haven't said welcome to NBC, but we're glad you're with us. And the committee is continuing to go after Mr. Trump's inner circle. Hope Hicks was one of his closest confidants in the White House. What is the committee hoping to hear from her?
Well, Tom, you point out pretty appropriately that there are few people that are as close to the former President Donald Trump than Hope Hicks. She was someone who was one of his earliest advisors when he was considering a run for president back in 2015. She's been with him as a close inner advisor in his inner circle in the White House. She did leave the White House for a short period of time, but was there during this crucial period of time that the January 6th Select Committee is so interested in. And that's the period of time between the 2020 election and January 6th, where they firmly believe that Donald Trump peddling false claims about the election is what led to all the violence and chaos here on January 6th. So much like they've done with many of these other close advisors of the former president, they want to ask very specific questions about what Hope Hicks saw during that period of time as they build this case about what led to what happened on January 6th. Of course, the big question is, Tom, how forthcoming will Hope Hicks be? We've seen in the past when she's been asked tough questions by congressional investigators that she hasn't necessarily been that forthcoming.
Well, you must be reading my questions, because that was my next one. She did not answer questions when she was asked to back in 2019. So do we think this is going to be any different this time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. You know, when she spoke in front of the Judiciary Committee, she invoked executive privilege through much of what was a very lengthy question and answer period between members of that committee. Now, the timing was different. She was a member of the administration at that time. She's no longer a member of the administration, but we've seen many of these other Trump advisors still attempt to claim executive privilege long after they no longer hold those positions. And it would stand to reason that Hicks may at least attempt to employ that on some level. The other thing to keep in mind here, Tom, is that she has a lot more bandwidth to try and challenge any attempt by the committee to legally extract information from her, where some of these other individuals who the committee went to very early on had a real risk of a criminal contempt charge against them just because the committee had more time to pursue that. You know, this committee's time as a legislative body could be coming to an end with the pending November election. So Hicks has a lot of room here to try and stonewall the committee if she chooses. But the fact that she's there in front of them answering questions is hopeful for the committee. We'll just have to see if anything amounts to it.
NBC News coverage just got better with Ryan Nobles on the team. Ryan, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Coming up, the gunman in that St. Louis school shooting had a huge amount of ammunition with him. You won't believe the details. That's coming up next. Plus, it's getting more expensive to stream stuff on Apple. How much music and TV subscriptions are going to cost you and me in our 5 things? Bottom of the hour, and we have new data today showing that inflation and higher interest rates, they're still hitting Americans hard. No surprise. Consumer confidence has now fallen to its lowest point since July. That's worse than expected. Also today, we learned gains in home prices are cooling down at a record rate. Now, listen carefully here. The prices are cooling down, but they're still up. The rate of the increase is going down, and by a lot. In an exclusive interview with NBC News senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhle, the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, says she expects this to be the case for quite a while. Listen to this.
I can't rule out the risk of one, but as I said, I believe there is a path toward bringing inflation down in the context of a strong labor market.
Yeah, when she says the risk of one, she's talking about the risk of a recession. Joining us now is CNBC's real estate correspondent and all-around guru, Diana Oleg. All right, Diana, what stands out to you about today's housing report? Prices are coming down, but interest rates are higher. So both sides of the house purchase agreement are affected here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what's really standing out in this report, Tom, is the speed at which home prices are really cooling off. Yes, they're 13% higher than they were a year ago, and this is on the S&P Case-Shiller report that everybody watches, but it's 2 months backdated, so we're talking August. But the price declines from July to August are much more than we usually see at this time of year, and also these annual gains that we see each month, comparing it to a year ago, are falling at the fastest pace ever. So what that means is for buyers, maybe you can get in if prices are coming better, but for sellers, you're not going to get what you think you were going to get 2 months ago.
Yeah, but to play devil's advocate with you, and Diana and I do this in the newsroom from time to time, a year ago, we were at exponentially higher. Prices kept going higher and higher and higher, and that was unsustainable as well, right?
Right. It was absolutely unsustainable. I think you and I talked about this many, many times, and that's why it's actually a good thing for the housing market for prices to cool off so first-time buyers can get in. And when I say that sellers might not get what they think they can get, it's not like they're losing money. Remember, home prices are up 40% since the start of the pandemic. So unless you bought your house in the last, 6 or 8 months, you're not going to lose money on it. And maybe if you're a flipper, you would, but that's a whole nother story. But if you bought your house even 5 years ago, you're still coming out with a profit.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about supply? Where do we stand right now in terms of supply on the market?
Well, you would think that supply would be getting better, but it's really not. Homes are sitting longer, and those are homes that might not be priced very well. But the problem is you'd think more might be coming on the market this time of year because it's not such a hot time of year to sell. Here's the problem. Sellers are saying, okay, if I'm going to sell my house now and then I want to buy another one, I'm trading 2.75% on my 30-year fixed. I'm paying that for a 7% mortgage rate. That's how big the difference is. Why would I want to do that? I'm going to sit with my house. I'm going to wait a little longer, see if rates come down. Maybe I'll do some home renovations. But it just means that those potential sellers are really locked in. And because of this drop in demand, home builders, they are pulling back a lot because they're sitting on more supply.
Yeah, we saw new housing starts drop dramatically last month. Diana reads the Case-Shiller Index for fun on a regular evening. So, Diana, thank you for bringing your expertise to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for making me so boring.
All right, we're going to get you over now to our 5 things that our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, today we learned more about the school shooting in St. Louis, and this is so discouraging and disappointing and distressing. That killed a 15-year-old student and a teacher. Police say that gunman, he graduated from the school last year. He had an AR-15 style rifle. He had more than 600 rounds of ammunition. Authorities credit locking doors and a very quick police response for preventing even more deaths. Number 2, sad news. Former Defense Secretary Ashton Carter died Monday after a sudden cardiac event, according to his family. Carter had served in the Obama administration for 2 years, and he was behind the campaign to defeat ISIS in Iraq and in Syria. He also created the policy that allowed transgender people to join the military and serve openly. He was just 68 years old. Number 3, today Amazon announced it's going to start offering Venmo as a payment option at checkout. Rollout is going to start for some users on the app and on Amazon.com today before launching for all users, U.S. users, by Black Friday. Number 4, speaking of payments, get ready to pay more for Apple's music and TV streaming services. An Apple Music subscription now costs $10.99, up from $9.99. While Apple TV Plus will now cost $6.99, and that's 40% higher than the $4.99 it used to be. In a statement, Apple says increased music licensing costs have led to the higher fees. Number 5, tomorrow's Powerball jackpot has grown to $700 million. No one has been able to win Powerball's top prize since August, so the jackpot has been growing and growing and growing ever since. A sheriff's department officer in Arizona today tells us he has never seen anything like what went down at the Grand Canyon Caverns over the past few days. 5 people found themselves trapped for about 21 stories underground at the caverns in Peach Springs for up to 30 hours. They're all above ground now after a rescue last night. An elevator taking the tourists down stopped working on Sunday. Fortunately, the group was not stuck in the elevator the whole time. They were in the caverns, and there's a hotel suite right there next to them. So that wasn't terrible. The Grand Canyon Caverns is a tourist attraction that lets visitors tour inside an ancient underground cave. Pretty cool. Look at that hotel. And they can eat at a restaurant and stay at the motel down there. NBC's Miguel Almaguer joins me now. I've never been there, but that looks pretty cool. All right. Are you hearing anything from the family that was trapped? What are they saying about their ordeal?
Well, Tom, as you might expect, that family is thrilled to be out tonight. This was a 4-hour rescue that unfolded more than 200 feet underground. The family had taken that elevator down to the Grand Canyon cavern floor. They were expecting to be down there about 30 minutes. Instead, they spent nearly 30 hours deep below the Earth's surface. Felicia Jimenez had gone on the excursion with her family when they got word the elevator was malfunctioning. She said they had 2 options: to wait for a rescue or walk up 21 stories. What's really described as more of a fire escape than a staircase. There were 4 members in her family who couldn't physically do it, so she said the situation was terrifying. Here's how she explained it.
I was terrified, definitely, when they hit me with the solution of, you guys either have to stay down here with the babies or you need to take the trip up the stairs. I lost it. I started bawling.
Fortunately, they made it out, Tom, and they're back on the surface.
Did they have food, water, milk for the babies? Any idea if they had anything like that?
They said they didn't have anything except for what they brought down, and they only brought down a few light supplies. Fortunately, though, they said they were able to walk out of there. The mother was able to go with her children and carry them up that kind of stairwell, but they were really out. The folks who were older, sorry about the noise back here, Tom, the family members that were older simply couldn't make it up that stairway, so they were stuck there for all that time.
Yeah, 21 stories. I wouldn't do that either. Is it common for there just to be one way out of a cavern like this? I mean, you know, last month we saw hundreds of visitors trapped at Carlsbad Caverns, which is a beautiful place, by the way. Go there if you have a chance. But apparently, you know, that flooding trapped a lot of people, and one way out there, one way out here. You'd think that there must be more than one way out of these deep caverns.
Yeah, you would think so, especially so deep underground. They say they've never really had significant problems at this cavern before. As you mentioned earlier, one of the deputies said it was the first time in 30 years that he had ever seen anything like this. Of course, with a cave or a cavern, there's going to be some inherent risk, but they seem to be really surprised that this type of rescue was needed.
You know, always bring a power bar with you. I'm telling you, granola bar in your back pocket. You always have to have a granola bar. Miguel.
It can't hurt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miguel, in Los Angeles. After the break, and this is serious, an NBC News investigation, how a radiology group may have misread dozens of mammograms and potentially missed cancer cases. More on that when we come back next. We're back with an NBC News investigation, and we want you to listen up. We're looking into how a radiology group in Arizona is accused of failing to detect breast cancer in dozens of women, something that may have cost one woman her life. Back in 2017, Dr. Beth Dupree relocated to Sedona, Arizona to build a state-of-the-art breast center. What she found, she says, shook her to her core. She says multiple patients came to her with a cancer that had not been caught on previous scans. These misses, she says, were not subtle, including one tumor that she says was about the size of a tangerine. A radiology group review found an additional 25 cancers that were also missed on initial scans. Kristen Dahlgren joins me now. Boy, is this infuriating. Kristen, this is devastating for anybody to find this out, that their cancer might have been caught sooner. How did this happen? How did they miss this?
Right, absolutely. And it's a good question. Look, the hospital in Arizona that Dr. Dupree worked with had an exclusive contract with a radiology group. So Dr. Dupree brought some of these cases to the hospital, who then urged the radiology group to do this review. They looked at more than 6,000 cases, and that's when they found those additional 25 cancers that could have been seen, according to Dr. Dupree, on the previous images. The hospital and the radiology group that we reached out to say that it was actually less than the expected national error rate for reading radiology reports. And so there's a lot going on here. Mammography works, but it does have its limitations. But Dr. Dupree and a specified breast radiologist that was working there who did this review said that these were cancers that were obvious and should have been caught, Tom.
You talked to some of the patients and their families that were affected by this, and what did they tell you?
Right. Well, I spoke with one man who lost his wife of 54 years. He said that she had been a cancer patient before, and so she was very diligent about her scans. She was worried about recurrence or about another cancer in her other breast, and when she started to notice changes, she brought them up, and she went and had imaging done. And I asked him directly, what did they tell her? And they told her, according to her husband, that they couldn't see anything. She was one of Dr. Dupree's first patients, but Dr. Dupree says she certainly was not the last that came to her with a cancer that could have been diagnosed sooner.
And there's no way to fix this, right? But how does this radiology group involved, how do they try to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Right. And so they tell us that all of the mammography is now being read by a dedicated breast imager, someone who has extra training in reading mammography. And so that's one thing that they're doing. But it's important to point out, and we'll get more into this in our nightly news story, but Dr. Dupree and several of the specific breast radiologists who were hired have since left this hospital. They claim, and radiology group, they claim that not enough was done and that it actually was more than 25 patients who had a delay in their diagnosis.
Oh, boy. All right, Kristen, thank you very much. You can watch Kristen's full report, as she mentioned, on NBC Nightly News tonight, 6:30 Eastern Time, or wherever it airs in your time zone. Coming up, check your cabinet. Some dry shampoos are being recalled over a potential cancer-causing chemical. We're going to get into that and the risks. Plus, a Wyoming man hurt after a grizzly bear attack, but it wasn't the bear that hurt him. He kind of did it to himself. We'll tell you that story in the local. So this is true. NBC News covers hundreds of stories each day, and there's no way to stay on top of every one of them. So our bureau teams have broken it down for all of us. And this is what they tell us is going down in their regions. It's a segment we like to call The Local on News Now. Out of our Southeast Bureau, police in Florida, look at that video right there. They've released new surveillance video showing a 10-year-old escaping what they think is a suspect's second attempt to kidnap her on the way to school. You can see the girl running away and a man following her before turning around and disappearing. Around a corner, police describe the suspect as being 30 to 40 years old, 5'10", 6 feet tall more or less, with receding short brown hair. From our Midwest Bureau, a fire at an auto shop in Cleveland set off several explosions, collapsing part of the business and causing major damage to a house next door. Firefighters got to the scene quickly and they rescued a dog from the home. No injuries have been reported so far. Out of our Western Bureau, this Wyoming hunter is recovering. Yeah, he accidentally shot himself while trying to fight off a grizzly bear. It happens. The local sheriff's office says he was hunting with his son on Friday when he fired several rounds at an attacking grizzly, and one of those rounds hit him in the leg. The bear ran off, and the man's son got him to a place where he could be evacuated. Wyoming fish and game officers are still looking for the bear. That'll leave a mark. If you have an extensive hair care routine, you might want to double check which products you use. The British giant in this business, Unilever, is recalling dry shampoos in the United States. Here they are right there on your screen. These sprays might contain potentially high levels of a chemical linked to causing cancers and blood disorders. It's called benzene. You've heard of it before. The American Cancer Society says it doesn't always cause cancer, but there is evidence that it can. Joining us now, NBC News senior medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Yeah, I mean, benzene, that's one of those chemicals you always think about when it comes to cancer, right? Can you explain what exactly benzene is and why we try to limit our exposure?
And that is true, Tom. That's one of the things that you hear about in different ingredients, that benzene is something we want to avoid because, like you mentioned, it's not necessarily causing cancer, but it is definitely one of those things that we look at as causing cancer. Benzene is a product that comes from petroleum. It's a hydrocarbon, and like you can see there, it's colorless. Sometimes it's the yellow liquid. It can be in gasoline. It can be in heating oil. It can be in wood polishing solutions you have in the house. It's not supposed to be in hairspray or these types of hair solutions there. And so it's one of those things that you might not necessarily understand it's there, you might not necessarily smell it or see it, but if it is there and you do get exposed to it, it can be, if it's a high enough levels and long enough, it can be dangerous.
Hey, guys in the control room, can we put the photograph back up? Because people need to see those products. What happens to people who use these products, and what should they look out for?
So the main thing you want to look out for is they want to go ahead and get rid of these products. Like you mentioned, it's a recall that the company has authorized, has started this recall, so they want to get rid of them. And then just keep an eye on yourself. The thing with benzene, especially in situations like this, it can cause blood disorders. It can cause leukemia, which is the blood cancer. And so kind of just keep an eye on yourself and keep an eye on your health. If you are having health issues or if you're concerned about this, then certainly talk to your doctor about looking into something like this. But first and foremost, the main step is to go ahead and get rid of the product itself. That way you can keep yourself safe. And what they mentioned is these products were made before October 2021, which was a year ago. And so they still might be on your shelf. You definitely want to get rid of them, though.
Hey, Dr. John, just last week, there was a report that chemical hair straighteners, a product that a lot of African-American women use, that can cause cancer as well, right? So what should people using these products keep in mind? And is there similarity between these two products?
There's a bit of similarity, but it's different things we're looking at here. With the hair straightener, it's what uses what are called, the chemicals in there are estrogen disruptors. And so these are chemicals that can disrupt the hormones in a woman's body. And like you mentioned, you know, the black community, they tend to use them more, but it is every woman who uses these that could be potentially at risk. And what the study found out is if you use them 4 times in the last year, it doubled your chances of getting uterine cancer. And so you want to be careful there as well. Now, the difference here is with these products, as opposed to being a spray, you put it in your hair and it can actually burn the skin, which means the ingredient can get even deeper in your skin and into your body. The other ones we talked about, which are the dry shampoos, are sprays that you can either ingest by inhaling it in, it can get through the skin. And so both of these are things to be concerned about, and both of these are things you want to make sure that you take care of.
All right, so call me crazy, but it seems as if the FDA allows products to be used, and then the FDA determines if they're safe. Well, should it be the other way around here?
You know, in a perfect world, it would be the other way around. But by legislation, by law, the FDA does not approve these medications or these cosmetics. They do approve medications, they do approve drugs, but they don't approve cosmetics. They can regulate them, but they can only regulate them after they've already come on the market. And they can't even, as a matter of fact, Tom, they can't even initiate a recall. This has to be a recall that's voluntary through the company. They can do a recall if they need to through the court system, but they can't do it themselves. And so part of it is their hands are tied to a certain extent. Congress is looking at changing those laws, and so hopefully they will, because you're right. It should be looked at before it goes on the market, not after it causes problems.
Sean, I did not know that. That's interesting information. So if you use these products, they have not been FDA approved. John, thank you. Dr. John Torres, we appreciate it. When we come back, Adidas' partnership with Kanye West is done, and Gap is removing Yeezy items from its stores. What's next for Ye after the break? Okay, you know everybody's talking about this. The question tonight is what's next for Kanye West, with his corporate partners trying to save face after the rapper's anti-Semitic outbursts, rants. No matter how much it might cost them, they're cutting cords. Gap says it's removing products from its Yeezy Gap partnership from stores and shutting down the Yeezy Gap website over Kanye's inexcusable, their words, behavior. It comes after Adidas broke its silence finally by breaking off its massively successful partnership with Ye. The German company said in a statement that it does not tolerate anti-Semitism and any other sort of hate speech, and that West's comments and actions are unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous. Adidas says the move will likely cost it some $246 million on the 2022 net income in the short term. And it's costing Ye as well. According to a Forbes estimate, without the Adidas deal, the rapper, who now, by the way, just goes by Ye, is no longer a billionaire. These numbers have not been independently verified by NBC News. We have contacted a publicist for Ye for comment, and that publicist isn't calling us back. Danny Savalos is talking to us now about this whole thing. Savalos, sorry, Danny.
I'll call you back.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, the Adidas Yeezy partnership is something the company has recognized as one of its most successful collaborations. That would probably be the reason it was dragging its heels on this. Is that why they were so slow on the move here?
This is a major financial decision. It might be easy in principle to say, look, Adidas is a company that has some rather dubious connections in its origins to potentially the Nazi Party. And so they should probably want to act quickly and distance themselves. But it's not as simple as just shutting a door or deleting an email. They have a multi-million-dollar relationship. So you have to call the lawyers, go over the agreement. And I imagine that agreement that they had with Ye was many pages long of German, efficient, organized language protecting Adidas. And not just protecting Adidas, but protecting them against this particular person. This is not a contract with, say, a professional athlete who may lead a boring life. This is someone that the lawyers on Adidas's side could have foreseen might do something wacky. And so that might be in there as a kind of morals clause. They had to line up the lawyers, figure out their options, and then go public. That's why it took so long.
Kanye himself said on camera in the last week or two that even if he made outrageous anti-Semitic comments, Adidas could not back out of the deal. That was before he made these comments, it appears, right? So he knew that he thought that he had an ironclad agreement. You know, we've seen the public backlash, companies cutting ties, Ye getting cut off from social media platforms. Where does this go from here? Is there any coming back for him, or is he essentially persona non grata?
First, just because Ye maybe thought that Adidas wouldn't or couldn't drop him for anti-Semitic comments, it doesn't necessarily mean that he had read the agreement. I imagine this is a partnership type agreement that runs hundreds of pages and is in pure legalese. So assuming for the moment that he didn't know it, he must have been surprised when Adidas took the legal position that, yes, indeed, we do not have to stand for this. So the next steps become very interesting. I mean, could Adidas even go after Kanye for indemnification? It all depends on whatever's contained in that legal document that they executed or legal document when they entered into this alliance. What does it say? Can Adidas even go after Kanye or Ye for things that he does that harms Adidas? And there's a pretty good case to be made that Adidas has definitely suffered harm. Obviously, Kanye has as well, but so too has Adidas.
All right, Danny, thank you very much. Anti-Semitic comments from Kanye West. You can make your own decision at home. That's a wrap for this hour. We'll have more for you here tomorrow, same time, same place, and the news continues.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.